I bought my first house at the age of 24 whilst working full-time as a junior doctor, and fast forward to today, I've been really fortunate enough to have been able to purchase more properties since then. And in today's video, I wanted to share how to buy a house step by step in the UK in 2025 with tips that I wish I knew when I started my journey at 24. So if you've been here before, you know the drill. Grab your pen, grab your pencil, get comfortable, and let's go. Step 1, you want to understand your financial position. In other words, just how much can you afford when you are thinking of purchasing a house? And there are different factors that influence this. The first factor is how much are banks willing to actually give you to purchase the house? And in order to figure this out, the best thing to do is to use the free online calculator that different banks offer, and they will ask you questions around your income, how much you're spending, if you have people who are dependent on you, and based on the data that you put into the website, they will generate what the maximum amount they think they will be able to lend you. And this is great because it gives you realistic insight into just how much banks will be willing to give you. And then once you have this number, you then want to see if it aligns with the price points that you had in line with the houses that you've been looking at. And if it does, the next thing you want to do is check your credit score. And your credit score basically is your credit worthiness. It gives lenders insight into how likely you are to pay back any money that you borrow from them. And the higher your credit score, the better your interest rates. Again, there's tools online that you can use such as Verion, Check My File, Clear Score, and the list goes on. And then once you have your credit score, you want to start to think about your deposit. There are some banks which will give you a house and expect you to only put down a 5% deposit. However, the interest rate with those tend to be a lot higher than if you were able to put down a higher deposit. And then once you've thought about your deposit, you then want to think about the hidden costs associated with purchasing a house. The first big one is stamp duty. As of April 2025, if you are a first-time buyer and you're purchasing a home worth more than £300,000, you will need to pay 5% stamp duty, which can be a considerable amount of money depending on the cost of the house. The second thing you want to think about is the actual conveyancing process. You're going to need to pay solicitors in order to do all of the paperwork associated with buying and registering a house under your name. And then you'll want to think about other fees such as getting a survey. A survey basically tells you about the state of the house that you're about to purchase and if there are any works that need doing which could add to the cost of purchasing the home. Step 3, which is one of my favorite steps, is the actual house hunting process. And there are loads of different websites which you can use to look for houses that are being sold. If you're based in the UK, then you would have heard of Zoopla or Rightmove or On The Market as typical sites which sellers and estate agents advertise houses that are looking to be sold. Now, when you are starting the house hunting process, it can be overwhelming, and so to make it less overwhelming, it would be good if you understood the kind of house that you were looking for. Do you want a flat, terraced house? Do you want a detached house? And another thing that you want to also be clear on is, are you looking for a house that is a freehold or are you looking for a house that is a leasehold? And a freehold house is basically a property where you own the house, but you also own the house that the land is on. Whereas with a leasehold property, you own the house, but you do not own the land that the house is on. And so as well as paying the fees associated with having the actual house itself, you'll need to pay the owner of the land which the house is on a monthly fee. When you are going on viewings, think of it as a date. You're trying to work out whether or not this house is for you. So have a list of questions, have a list of negotiables and non-negotiables. Does it have to have a certain number of rooms? Does it have to have a garden? Does it have to have parking space available? The more questions you ask the estate agents and the sellers when you're going through the house viewing process, the better it is for you in the long run. So I will insert in the description a list of questions which I asked estate agents. Step 4 is my favorite part, and that's when you make the offer. When you make the offer is done through the estate agent and not the seller directly. Unless the seller doesn't have an estate agent, then you might communicate with each other directly. Typically speaking, you never start your offer with the asking price. Let's say they're selling the house for $250,000 and and the house is quite old and needs a bit of work, you can start off a little bit less than the asking price. However, if it's a great house that loads of people want, then chances are if you offer less than the asking price, they won't take you seriously. So you want to be competitive. So I would definitely say there is an art to negotiation, and the more information you have around the nature of the sale, the better you can use it to your advantage. Step 5, you want to hire a conveyancer or a solicitor. And the difference between the two is a conveyancer is a qualified legal professional who is specifically trained in property law. Now, I can't lie to you, how smooth your house buying process is going to go is very much dependent on the person and the firm that you pick. If you pick a firm that don't respond back to emails, that aren't really pleasant to deal with, your house buying process could take twice as long as the UK average. So you want to make sure that you check the reviews, you want to make sure that their price is competitive, and you want to ask around, speak to your mortgage broker. They do loads of deals for loads of people, and so they will have an idea of which firms are good and which firms are best to stay away from. And then once you have picked which firm you are going with, you then want to ask them for a rough cost breakdown, and they should be able to tell you how much the search should cost, how much ID verification, for example, will cost. And again, you can use that to sort of factor in whether or not it's still within your budget. And the purpose of your solicitor and conveyancer are to do the things like checking the title deeds, checking if there's any environmental issues associated with the area and the property, and also checking if there's any planning issues with the property. Step 6 is applying for your mortgage. You can either do this yourself by using an online mortgage broker, and there are some that used to be free for first-time buyers, but that was around COVID times. I don't know if those deals still exist. When your mortgage broker are applying, they will ask you for a ton of details. They'll ask you to confirm you are who you say you are. They'll want to understand what your income is, what your expenses are, and they will relay this to the banks and try and find you the best mortgage product on the market. Now, there can sometimes be additional fees associated with applying for the actual mortgage itself, and these additional fees are known as valuation and surveys. When you apply for a mortgage, the bank will typically come out and they will get a member of their team to check that the house is worth exactly how much it's being sold for. So let's say you purchased a house and you've put an offer in for £240,000 and it's been accepted. The bank will want to come and check, looking at historical data, to ensure that the house is actually worth £240,000 and not £190,000, because it just makes the deal more risky. Step 7 is all things searches, and this isn't anything that you do per se, it's what your solicitor / conveyancer should be doing for you. And the searches tend to fall into 3 categories. So they will do a local authority search, they will do water and drainage search, and they'll do an environmental search. And then they will relay the outcome of these searches to you in order for you to make an informed decision or to ask any further questions and give you the opportunity to clarify anything, just so that you're in full understanding of what it is that you're about to get into. And typically speaking, searches will take about 2 to 4 weeks, but they can take longer depending on the outcome of those searches and if other further inquiries need to be put in place. Step 8 is when it all gets real, and that's when you exchange contracts. And at that point, it is legally binding that the house is yours, and you will be asked to pay your deposit to your solicitor / conveyancer. And it means at this stage both parties have to commit, and if they don't commit, then the other party can be liable or will be liable for any of the issues that arises from them just not committing. And so if you do decide to back out at this point, like I said, there will be penalties. You will lose your deposit. Step 9 is completion day, and on completion day you will find out that the bank would have given the remaining money for the property to the seller. It's when you typically get your keys and the property is registered with the land registry office, and yeah, it's a great day. It's a great day. To some people it's an emotional day because there is so much involved with actually buying a house. There's so much back and forth and chasing and just all the 10,000 stuff, and it all leads up until that moment where you get your keys. But honestly, it is the best feeling ever. But it's also the time where things get real. You realize that you need to purchase furniture if you haven't done so already. You need to start getting builders in if the house needs to be renovated. My advice to everyone is, when you get to this day, it's so easy to be consumed with your to-do list, but take a moment to literally bask in that you are a bloody homeowner, and that is something to be proud of. It's something to celebrate. It's something to really remember, because it's such a huge achievement. Buying a house can be really overwhelming, especially if we haven't done it before. So I hope I've broken down the process into steps. It's made it a lot more easier for you guys. And if you have found this video helpful, don't forget to like, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe and join the family. And if you do have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comment section and I will try my best to reply. And I will also link in the description box a free checklist for you to use when you are going through the home buying process, as well as links to the different websites and resources that I've made reference to in this video. And that's it from me today. I will see you in my next video. Bye!